morning, or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the ASA section on Teaching Statistics in the Health Sciences winter webinar. My name is Maria Charleglio, and I'm the current chair of the section. We are a section within the American Statistical Association devoted to excellence in teaching statistics and conducting statistics education research, specifically within the health sciences. Our goal is to promote communication around all of these activities to professionals interested in teaching statistics. If you have questions about our section, I encourage you to go to our website. We have many resources available for statistical educators. We also regularly maintain a blog posting about the different activities going on in our section, as well as different resource reviews. If you're looking for real-world data examples to use in your teaching, I urge you to join our section and look into our resources portal. Here we have many different data sets that are free for section members to use. Today for our winter webinar, we have a panel of teaching-focused faculty who will discuss the viability of a career teaching statistics in the health sciences. Dr. Amy Nowacki of the Cleveland Clinic will moderate our 2-hour panel discussion. Before I turn it over to Amy, I want to let you know that if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A box. The questions will be moderated throughout the session. Also, if the webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the TSHS website after the session. So now I'll turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Maria. So, as was mentioned, this webinar is titled Teaching in the Health Sciences, Is There a Viable Teaching Career Pathway? This is an encore presentation of a session that was presented at 2022 JSM. And we are so grateful to our panelists who are willing to come back for round 2. And we hope that we will encourage those who are attending today to participate, ask some good questions, give us some feedback, tell us a little bit about what's going on at your institute or what questions you have. We hope to kind of open this up for some discussion. I'd like to begin by actually introducing the members of our esteemed panel. I'd like to begin here with introducing Dr. Amanda Ellis. She joined the College of Public Health at University of Kentucky as an assistant professor in 2020. Her focus is on graduate education, course and curriculum development. She earned her undergraduate degree in mathematics from the University of Kentucky. She also earned her MS and PhD in statistics from the University of Kentucky. She previously taught at Eastern Kentucky University, where she focused on undergraduate and graduate education. Next, we have Dr. Stephen Foti. He's a clinical assistant professor in the Department of Biostatistics at the University of Florida. He received his PhD in statistics education in 2017 and his MS in statistics in 2013, both from the University of Florida. Dr. Foti currently serves as the Director of Graduate Studies and teaches a variety of courses on biostatistics methods, literacy, and data visualization to graduate students in public health and medical sciences. In addition to teaching, he participates in educational scholarship through the Statistics Teaching and Learning Corner blog, and by working to develop and improve online and in-person courses in his department. Next, Dr. Steve Grambo. He's an associate professor and associate chair for education in the Department of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics at the Duke University School of Medicine. He provides administrative oversight of 5 professional and graduate degree programs, multiple domestic and international certificate-based training programs, and several educational initiatives, each focused on different roles and aspects of clinical and translational science workforce development. His current work is focused on development of training programs intended to enhance and diversify the workforce and development of tailored clinical research education training programs for domestic and international health sciences audiences. Dr. James O'Dye is an assistant professor of clinical public health with the Division of Biostatistics in the College of Public Health at The Ohio State University. He received a bachelor's degree in mathematics from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana, a master's degree in statistics from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and his doctoral degree in statistics from Utah State University in 2014. His research interests involve advanced data modeling using Bayesian methods, hierarchical modeling, and applications to ecology and health. Currently, he has ongoing collaborations with researchers and physicians from OSU Wexner Medical Center and biostatisticians at OSU's Center for Biostatistics on research related to human diseases, including diabetes, cardiovascular disease, stroke, and cancer. And Dr. Matthew Zawistowski is a clinical associate professor in the Department of Biostatistics at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. He teaches numerous courses ranging from the large introductory course in the residential Masters of Public Health program to a small elective course in longitudinal data analysis for the online Masters of Public Health program. In the winter 2022 semester, he introduced a new upper-level course titled Pedagogical Methods for Biostatistics, designed to prepare biostatistics PhD students for their first teaching assignment in a faculty position. He is a co-PI of the NHLBI-funded Summer Institute in Biostatistics, or SIBS program, undergraduate research program at the University of Michigan. Dr. Zawistowski was recently awarded the 2022 School of Public Health Excellence in Teaching Award. In addition to teaching, he maintains a personal research track in statistical genetics, specifically statistical challenges of leveraging large biobanks for genetic research. He's a member of the Precision Health Biostatistics team that is tasked with managing and distributing the Michigan Genomics Initiative. And finally, my name is Amy Nowacki, and I will be serving as the panel moderator for this afternoon. I am an associate biostatistician at the Cleveland Clinic and associate professor of medicine at the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine of Case Western Reserve University. My primary research focus is on the communication and learning of statistical concepts, particularly in harmonizing with the case-based clinical learning of orientation of health professions education. My work also involves characterizations of innovative dissemination pathways and information uptake by medical patients and professionals. And I am excited to be here with you this afternoon. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. So, career pathways for collaborative biostatisticians, where the primary focus is collaborative research, have been established in many biostatistics departments and research organizations in the last decade or so. Somewhat newer are the idea of teaching-focused positions. So some institutions have explicit teaching-focused positions with promotional criteria in place. Some are thinking about it, and some are adamantly opposed to it. It's no surprise, however, if you're thinking, teaching-focused positions, what are those? And I've never heard of them. It might be because they also go by a lot of different names. Some institutions refer to them as a teaching professor, yet others refer to them as a professor of the practice. And yet others refer to them as clinical professors. And so it's no surprise that it's confusing. It's hard to identify these type of positions or roles. Today on our panel, we have represented some individuals who have such positions. We also have some individuals who are in departments that are inching very slowly towards having such positions. And we also have represented on our panel some individuals who are just interested in promoting the idea of a teaching-focused position. Ultimately, we are here today to try to answer this question: is there a viable and complete teaching career pathway? So I'd like to begin by throwing out a few questions to each member of our panel. First, I'd like to get to know a little bit about you and your role. So I'd like to ask that you please briefly describe the type of institution that you work for and what label is given to your position. Roughly, how many teaching-focused positions currently exist at your institution for biostatisticians? And what are the responsibilities of your teaching-focused position? How is the position funded? So I've given a little bit of fodder for thought here, and I'd like to turn this over first to Dr. Foti for his thoughts.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so as mentioned, I'm at the University of Florida, which of course is an R1 institution. And we throughout the entire university, these types of positions actually exist in the various colleges, and all those labels that were shown on the previous slide. We cover a lot of them, and I'll throw in lecturer and senior lecturer and a couple of others too, depending on where you are. Our department, the Department of Biostatistics, is located in both the College of Medicine and the College of Public Health and Health Professions. And both of those colleges here at UF currently use the clinical professor track. Although I guess, just recently, actually, since we last spoke about this over the summer, there's been a movement to kind of clarify that a little bit more. Of course, College of Medicine and College of Public Health, we have faculty who are working in an actual clinical role. They have the clinical professor title, and more of the teaching track positions have the clinical professor title as well. So throughout the university, though, there's been a movement to sort of switch to maybe a more, clearly teaching focused title. So we might have some more of that in the future. As far as biostatistics goes, in our department, anyways, there are 3 of us right now. And we recently just posted a position for a 4th one, by the way, for a teaching focused position. There are a couple of other maybe teaching tangential positions located throughout the university as far as biostatisticians go. But that's pretty much what we have here in our department. So as far as responsibilities go, the sort of default for our clinical track faculty in our department are just that, primarily teaching. Although there is a little bit of flexibility. So, part of my position has become, as mentioned, director of graduate studies. When I first started, I was sort of directing the online program. So there's some flexibility to sort of, take on some other sort of administrative type roles. And the funding for our positions is all hard money. So there's no, grant responsibilities for funding our salaries here in our department.
Thank you. Next, we'll turn it over to Dr. Zawistowski.
Hello. My name is Matt Zawistowski, and I'm at the University of Michigan in the School of Public Health in the Biostatistics Department. So Michigan, of course, a big research university, public university. The clinical track, there are many clinical people in the clinical track at the School of Public Health where I'm at. It's a bit of a catch-all position. There are, I know I have colleagues that have a very heavy administrative role, have titles of dean, and then others that are actual real live clinicians and see patients and all that. But they also operate programs where they work with MDs that are getting involved in research. I'm the only one in the biostatistics department. I'm the first person that is in this track. We are currently advertising for a clinical assistant professor, and if students are interested, please do look at it, because we are having a lot of trouble recruiting and identifying somebody for that position. So for my position, it is 12 months. It's completely funded by hard money. If I want it to be that way, it would be 18 teaching credits for the full year. I'll talk about a little bit later. I think that I negotiated to have the opportunity to buy out up to 33% of my teaching credits so that I could do research using external funding. And then what's being shown here is how my actual position is evaluated based on 60% based on teaching evaluations, 20% on research output, and 20% on my service to the school and department.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dr. O'Day.
Hi, I'm James O'Day from the Ohio State University. Our institution is a public land grant, sea grant, and space grant research university based in Columbus, Ohio. As the flagship of the university system of Ohio, it has been ranked by major institutional rankings among the best public universities in the United States. Our school is a leading producer of Fulbright scholars and students, the highest ranked public university in Ohio, which happens to be the home to the well-known Wexner Medical Center, the James Comprehensive Cancer Center, and a world-class graduate and undergraduate programs. The university comprises of 18 colleges and schools, which includes my college, College of Public Health. In my college, within the Division of Biostatistics, my position is labeled Assistant Professor of Clinical Public Health. Currently, there are 2 teaching focused positions for biostatisticians at Ohio State University, but there are several teaching positions across campus. Within my division, I am currently the only one, but the second one to be hired. The first one had to leave due to family issues, but I'm the second one that was hired. And there are plans underway to hire another person to join me. My responsibilities as a 100% FTE clinical teaching faculty position in the division within the college includes me teaching graduate and undergraduate courses in biostatistics and statistics. Second, student advising. Number 3, current curriculum development, collaborative or methodological research, and then college and university level services. If I have to break down these 2 percentages of effort, I do 70% teaching, 10% mentoring, 10% scholarship and collaborative research, and 10% service. My position is funded by the university, but I'm allowed to apply for grants if I want to. They don't emphasize on that, but I can do that if I want to. That is the flexibility that comes with my position within my college. Thank you.
So sorry about that. Thank you. And next we'll hear from Dr. Ellis.
Hi, my name's Amanda Ellis. I'm at the University of Kentucky, which is an R1 institution, and I teach within the College of Public Health. So my position is labeled as assistant professor, but we have what are called title series. So I'm in a special title series, and special title series were created to basically, the regular title series is what you would think of with that distribution between research, teaching, and service. And if a position is needed where those aren't evenly distributed or they need to be heavy in one of those areas, they create special title series. So I have what's called a special title series in education. So in terms of how many teaching focused positions currently exist within my department, I'm the only one in this type of position, but we do also have one lecturer in my department. And then in terms of responsibilities, my breakdown is here. This is a little bit old. So I do roughly 75% teaching. I think right now it's actually 68%. And I do have, oh, there we go. So I do some administration. I'm currently serving as the Director of Graduate Studies for our master's program. I'm also the vice chair of the department, and I take care of the education pieces for the department. And then I do some research as well. In terms of how the position's funded, it's primarily funded through hard money, but I do have the opportunity to join grants. So I'm actually 20% funded right now on a grant. And what I do on that grant is I look at, basically I bring the course development that I've done in the past to help train or develop active bystander trainings. So I'm using some of that teaching expertise to help develop trainings. And so that's why, even though research is only 10%, I'm 20% on a grant, because that overlaps some with my teaching.
Excellent, thank you. And for our last panelist, I'm actually going to change up the questions just a little bit. Dr. Grambo, in January 2021, your School of Medicine created a new faculty career track that allows faculty to pick a focus. Can you tell us a little about the former structure and this new structure?
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, I can. So what wasn't in my bio is that I've been at Duke University in the School of Medicine since around 1999. And when I came to Duke, there was no Department of Biostatistics and Bioinformatics. I was in the Division of Biometry in the Department of Community and Family Health. Within about 5 years after coming here, they decided they needed a Biostatistics and Bioinformatics department. Up until they created the faculty career track that you mentioned, there was primarily a research track, a non-tenured research track that's probably, analogous to what a lot of institutions have, and then a tenure track. And the history of our department was really historically, most of the statisticians had a heavy collaborative focus and often sat with the clinical departments where they collaborated. Some of those folks did a lot of methodology as well, but so that's evolved over time. And, for most of the time, I am, have always been very passionate about education. And so my career, my faculty position didn't really advance because I wasn't doing the things that were considered, things that counted towards promotion. Education really wasn't emphasized. It was a very traditional kind of publishing in stat and biostat journals, methodology type work. But in January of 21, the School of Medicine rolled out a whole new faculty career track. Under that new paradigm, the work that I had been doing kind of overnight became counted for promotion under that track. And that track actually has you can claim one of three primary foci. It's like it can be clinical, it can be education, or it can be research, which is the kind of traditional methodology approach. And that's all kind of then there's a faculty tenure track as well that's kind of the traditional tenure track. But so when this was rolled out, I was able to use a lot of my educational background, curriculum development, educational administration, and teaching service counted for promotion. And so what's a little unusual, I guess, about my career trajectory is that I was not hired into a teaching position. I kind of selected that in our department. And I guess without going on too long, the other relevant thing is we developed educational programs in our department quite late. I think, so for most of the time I was at Duke, we had one professional master's program, and it was for clinical researchers. It wasn't for biostatisticians, but it was based in our department. And now, as you mentioned, we have a master's in biostatistics, a PhD in biostatistics, and several other related PhD quantitative programs. And so there's a lot more teaching opportunity and teaching activity in our department. There still is not like titled positions with teaching. That is, and it's not really a designated service responsibility. It's people get effort coverage to teach courses in different programs, and it's so there still remain no focus positions, but and as your highlight says here, I was the first person in our department to go up with a primary focus under education, and I believe that while my packet was being assembled and evaluated, there were some conversations with the faculty in the School of Medicine who actually wrote this document to kind of get into the details of how this differed from like a research track and what the documentation should look like. And so, so it was an interesting process. But I mean, and so just in terms of my my effort distribution, a lot of that administration is educational administration and is essentially funded by our educational programs in our department. And then there's the actual courses that I teach. And then the workforce development is kind of an extension beyond straight biostatistics of using my focus in education, the kind of broader clinical and translational workforce development, and that's funded under our CTSA grant. What I'll say that about this new faculty career track is it's, from my perspective, a really well thought out document with really clear categories of activity that are expected and required for promotion along those the clinical education and research tracks. And so it really is a very thoughtful document, I think they put together, and really for folks like me and people that are in those other domains as well, was a really amazingly transformational document in terms of recognizing the kinds of activities that some of us were already doing, and really gave us a path, a very clear path towards promotion.
Thank you, Steve. So to summarize what I'm kind of hearing, first of all, I am not a label. It is really hard to kind of put a specific label on these type of positions, because sounds like each institute really kind of uses different terminology here. So that is somewhat of a challenge. Also, no two positions look exactly the same. Each one of our panelists kind of described a slightly different setup that they have negotiated. And importantly, as we looked at all the different kind of breakdowns of their time spent, these positions need to be flexible. Some people really wanted to focus heavily on the teaching aspect. Some have much more of an administrative role. Others really want to carve out and keep a piece of that pie devoted to research, whereas others do not. And so it really seems like we need to have a lot of flexibility in how we kind of define and assess these positions. So now I'd like to consider evaluation and promotion for teaching focused positions. I'd like to ask our panel to describe what appointment and promotion criteria are appropriate for such positions in their view and/or the view of their institution. So in other words, please describe your current promotion criteria and then comment on what you think they actually should be. So we'll start with Dr. Foti.
Yeah, so we currently have, a promotion track. So we can go clinical assistant, professor, clinical associate, full professor, as similar titles to tenure tracks and more standard tracks. But our our promotion criteria, is primarily based on our teaching and educational scholarship in some ways. So, we're expected to participate in peer teaching reviews 1 to 2 times a year, done by other faculty members in the department. So those kind of go into our portfolio. Of course, course evaluations and other accomplishments are reviewed by our chair during our annual evaluations. And a major part of our portfolio, our promotion packet is our what our college basically calls a educational portfolio, and that can sort of include any of the work that you've done toward curricular development, program development, and it can include educational scholarship. It can include, sort of anything that's really in the realm of work toward this educational track. Our department, I think, sort of has established some guidelines that are meant to sort of clarify or expand on what are sort of the college's promotion criteria. So, here in the Department of Biostatistics, some of our clinical track faculty members are, involved in research as well. And also we have the opportunity to sort of, buy out some of our teaching effort for research as well. So, I think our college guidelines kind of focus on that educational scholarship, educational research, but in our department's view, it's kind of acceptable to, of course, do methodological or collaborative, biostatistics work toward your promotion as well. But obviously, the primary focus is on teaching. We do have, our college and department kind of emphasizes a mentorship program. So we should have official mentors of record on record and have regular meetings with them to kind of ensure that you're, on track for your promotions. I think these are, maybe these were developed more for tenure track faculty, but I think it's still good to, have that discussion and kind of make sure that we're sort of on track. We do mid-cycle reviews around the 3rd year for our clinical track faculty, which is, kind of follows a similar timeline to the tenure track faculty in our department as well. And then we do, promotions around year 6, I guess, from assistant to associate. And so I think it's a pretty good model. I think they're relatively recently updated as far as, the promotion criteria go from the college. And I think they're fairly clear. It's a little bit, maybe if I had to say something in my view that differs maybe or expands on it, I think it would be nice to have a little bit more clarity as to, how much evidence do we need to have at each level. The promotion guidelines from assistant to associate and from associate to full kind of sound exactly the same. It's just like to go from associate to full, it's, do more, keep doing what you're doing. So I think it would be nice to have a little bit more clarity as far as like what are you expecting to see? What does, qualify someone to show excellence in this track? Or is, obviously, the message isn't that everyone who shows up every day and teaches their courses, just gets promoted. I don't think that's the intent. So, how much of this stuff or at what level or what sort of evidence are they looking for? That would be a little bit, that would, I think, make people feel more comfortable when it comes time to go up for promotion. So that's pretty much how it works here.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And next we'll hear from Matt.
So for me at Michigan School of Public Health, I go through the same basic review process and merit process as tenure track and research track people in my department. So I have to submit an annual narrative to my department at school, the same merit that's essentially used for salary increases that tenure track and research folks do. And then, yeah, so my position is evaluated as I said, the teaching, research, and service activities, and those were weights that were agreed upon when I started my position. I have a faculty mentor, and actually I was promoted last summer, and after I got promoted, now I'm a mentor for a junior faculty in my department. It's actually somebody on a research track, so I guess they trust me enough to put me in that position. And then in terms of the promotion process for me, again, it was very, very similar to the promotion process in tenure track or research track. I had to write a personal statement describing, everything I'd done over time. One thing that I had to do that was unique was I had to submit something called a portfolio of practice. This was, it's like 100 slide PowerPoint scrapbook essentially. And I had collected, like, anytime I gave a talk or something, or I led a workshop, I was saving the advertisements for those. Had some research contributions in there. It's really just to document your impact. Actually, one of the cooler parts about creating that was I reached out to probably about a dozen students that I had mentored during the summer research programs while they were undergrads, and many of them were off in graduate school and that. And I reversed the thing. I had written them letters of recommendation years before. I asked them to write me a letter, just stating, what the program, the summer program, had meant in their careers. So that's probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen, is like these letters that students wrote about me. Very, very meaningful. And then I had to get letters from outside individuals, sort of arm's length people, to write letters to view my portfolio and my personal statement describing what I've done.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from James.
No, for my college, in terms of performance metrics, there is a process that every year during the spring semester, for example, this semester, you are evaluated by the division chair to begin with. And this process is identical to that of the tenure track faculty, except that, as Steve mentioned earlier on, the clinical or teaching faculty reviews or evaluations are heavily focused on teaching performance. Now, during the process, the teaching faculty, first of all, meets with the division chair to discuss and evaluate their previous year's performance. And this is also done for the tenure track faculty as well. But however, there is a division appointment, promotion, and tenure review that occurs for the clinical or teaching faculty within their division. And this APT, let me just use APT for short here, the appointment, promotion, and tenure review that occurs for the clinical and teaching faculty who has not been promoted to an associate, usually this is done so that they will give them another level of feedback. Once that is done, the division chair in turn writes an initial detailed evaluation of letter for that faculty, which is then sent together with the clinical or teaching faculty documentation. And then here the documentation will involve your SEIs, peer evaluations, things that you've done. It could be your published work, even though the emphasis is not on that, but anything that will form part of your documentation that will then be sent to the division APT subcommittees for further discussion among those eligible faculty. Now, following the review of the eligible faculty, the final annual performance review letter is then updated to include any discussions that occurred within the meeting of the eligible faculty. So this is done every year till we get to the point where you will be ready for promotion. And when that time comes, they will now send your documents to the college APT committee, and then any eligible faculty within the college, and then that will be voted on. Then if it is approved for your promotion, then you get the promotion. But that is basically the summary of the process that we use here. The good news is We currently have a working document, because when I got here the very first year, I was a bit concerned how I was going to be promoted. There wasn't anything that we were working with, but over the years, we've been able to come up with a working document. I would say it's not 100%, but it is way better than when I got here 4 years ago. So that gives me hope that this path that I have chosen, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that I can get to the point in my career that I will be happy with what I'm doing and what I've done throughout the years. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Amanda.
So my criteria is, or the process rather, is similar to those in a regular title series. I have yearly performance evaluations, and then a 2-year review, a 4-week review, and then evaluations for promotion and tenure. So something that has changed since this summer, when we originally sat as a panel, is that at that point, I was told that I would be evaluated by the evidences of excellence that regular title series are evaluated by. And I've since then found out that's not actually true. I have a separate document that's from my job description. And so those in a special title series are actually evaluated based on what is in the job description, not the excellence statements. Now it ends up that they're very similar, and but what I figured out was that the special title series, even though they exist at the university, how they're handled in terms of P&T still isn't entirely clear all the time. And in other colleges, special title series have gone through the promotion and tenure process, but in my college, they haven't done that in recent years. And so one of the nice things is our acting dean currently has been trying to promote information about my title series, so that when promotion and tenure time does come, people on the different committees, the chairs, they have a better understanding that the special title series are not regular title series. They are different, and so the ways that they are evaluated for promotion and tenure should reflect those differences. And I actually just had a meeting with my chair before this one. We were talking about this, and I was asking, what's the most important thing that I can do right now in terms of making sure I'm on track for P&T? And it was funny because it wasn't necessarily doing any of the things on the list. It was continue to promote how your title series is different, and to continue to promote, what it is that you're doing and how it's different from a regular title series.
Thank you. And next, we'll hear from Dr. Grimbo.
Thanks, Amy. So as I mentioned, I'm on a faculty career track now, which requires specifying, your primary focus. And what I'll say about education on all the tracks, there is an expectation of teaching and mentoring, right, in excellence. And what this career track established was the ability to claim that as a primary domain. You still have to claim a secondary domain of expertise as well, which for me was collaborative clinical research as a collaborative statistician. And so, as I mentioned, the document, actually, if you go to the Duke School of Medicine and just search for promotion, clinical promotion track, something like that, you'll find this document. And it is, I think it's open, and it's very specific and clear. It has specific criteria at the associate level for each of these primary domains and for the full professor, and things that distinguish maybe, I think, between associate and full professor. At the full professor level, you're expected to hold kind of an education and educational leadership position outside of your own program and department, so that you have demonstrated educational leadership at the university level. And that, you at the full professor level, that you have a documented history of like creating new courses or some kind of, innovative educational kind of work that you've done. one of the nice things, I think, particularly for folks that work in education, is that in terms of the scholarship requirements, there's flexibility. So it can be publishing in educational or clinical research journals, but it can also be things like educational YouTube channels or teaching blogs. So it allows flexibility in some of the kinds of, I think, activities that, as folks engaged a lot in teaching and curriculum development that we might create, you can get credit for those as part of your scholarly activity, which is really nice. And it, listed here, there are specific educational domains that you are required to demonstrate activity and scholarship in at least some of these. The other thing that folks mentioned that I'll talk about is, and this is something that's changed over time. For much of the time I've been at Duke, mentorship was not well structured or required. And that has changed with departmental leadership changes over the last 5 years, so that faculty at the assistant professor level are required to have mentoring committees, and there are required meetings and reports every year, which and so it's really raised the elevation both for the mentees and the mentors as an activity, and it's had a really positive impact, I think, in our department, and certainly on my own trajectory. It's been extremely helpful to have that. And then as you progress to associate, it becomes optional whether you want to keep a mentorship committee or not. But at the assistant level, it is required.
Thanks, Steve. So we had a question in the Q&A, which says, would it be possible for the panelists at universities with explicit teaching tracks to share their promotion criteria documents? It sounded like Dr. Grambo just mentioned that his documentation might be available online. And so he mentioned to Google and gave some hints about what to type in there. It sounds like, I bet if you could not find it, you could always maybe email him, and he might be willing to direct you to where that can be located on the website, or if he can find it quickly, he can share it in the Q&A so that will be available. And then with any of the other panelists, if they're aware of the documentation being available publicly at their university, if they wouldn't mind, they could also, that'd be great if you could type it in to the Q&A answer here to allow our attendees to know where those documents might be located. That would be really helpful for certain institutions that are trying to develop some documents. They might be able to take some ideas from what is happening at other institutes. If I don't know that we can post them explicitly, but we can try to have our panelists direct us to where they might be posted if they are currently publicly available. And if they're not publicly available at your institution, potentially you could always email one of our panelists, and they would be willing to maybe share with you the documents privately. I know some institutions do not want to have those publicly posted, but it sounds like we might be able to see a couple of suggestions here. Another comment, is there usually a promotion to the professor level? So maybe I'll open this to the panelists, and anyone who would like to jump in to answer can unmute themselves. But do you typically see kind of the 3-step structure that we have traditional with assistant, associate, professor, or does that change with these teaching focused tracks?
I don't mind to start. So ours is set up just like you said, Amy, with the 3-level. So assistant, associate, full. We have had in other colleges special title series and education go all the way to full. I don't know within my own college if anyone has made that there yet, but I hope and plan to eventually get there myself. So we do offer that at my university.
There is a
Really?
Michigan. There's a clinical assistant associate and a clinical professor. The only thing I'm unsure of, to be honest, and I should probably find this out because it's relevant to me, is if you have to get that bump, like if it's a promote or leave. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest.
We also have this three step: the assistant professor of clinical, associate, and then professor, full professor. And then in the chat I've made available, ours is also, the document is public, so I just put the link to the document for
Perfect.
to access.
Yeah, thank you. So we have 3 links placed in the Q&A that should direct you to different promotion criteria documents. So thank you, panelists. All right. So promotion, since we're talking about that topic, promotion often is conditional on evidence of creative scholarly work, or CSW. Now, traditionally, scholarship of teaching and learning has not always been considered CSW. One of our panel members from the JSM presentation commented or has been working in this area. And so I'm going to summarize his work in just one moment. But I wanted to, before I do that, I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the comments I was hearing about promotion and criteria for these type of roles. It sounds like it's, if you are thinking of designing one of these type of roles or applying for one, it's really important that there is alignment between the job description and the expectations. These positions are a little bit new and different, and so having people who hold these positions be held to the same expectations of more of the other traditional roles is not going to work. You also have to be open and accepting of unique evidence for teaching focused positions. I really appreciated Amanda's slide, even though maybe she doesn't use those examples of excellence right now for her position. I found those very helpful, seeing some examples of what is considered criteria for promotion in a teaching position. Most of the positions have an annual review by the department chair or some sort of mentoring committee. And a lot of them have similar timelines for promotion, from assistant to associate to full, as you would in a collaborative or a tenure track biostatistics kind of position. And so for those of you who do not know Matt Hyatt, Dr. Hyatt is a professor of biostatistics and chair of the Department of Population Health Sciences in the School of Public Health at Georgia State University. His research interests include the design and analysis of clinical trials, interdisciplinary collaboration, and importantly, biostatistics education. Now, the reason Dr. Hyatt was serving as a member of this panel is because while he himself does not currently hold a teaching focused position, he is very interested in the scholarship of teaching and learning, and has in fact served as a member of the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning Task Force. And he has worked tirelessly over the last couple of years to really try to change what is considered educational scholarship. And his focus has been in public health because that's the world that he works within. But he is very excited at the progress that's being made. And in fact, just recently, they have added to their criteria here that all types of research are valuable, whether conducted with the purpose of improving public health practice, advancing the scholarship of teaching and learning, or for generating new knowledge. And so even though he says, you know, he teases that it's just one phrase, advancing the scholarship of teaching and learning, it has made a world of difference for many people going up for promotion, because this is now saying that educational efforts can be considered creative scholarly work. Let me check. There's a comment here in the Q&A. It says, I have a question about hiring. Are most of these positions following a traditional hiring procedure with an upfront specific expectation about work responsibilities with ads targeted to the statistics community? I ask because some of these positions seem to have involved some amount of negotiation about the responsibilities. Also, does most of the hiring take place at the assistant professor level? These are great questions. Can I open that up to our panel?
I would, I mean, I'm on a committee right now trying to hire somebody at the clinical assistant professor level. I guess my piece of advice would be, we have, from the department's perspective, we've got some things that need to be covered by this position, and we have a vision of what the person would do. But I don't think it ever hurts to ask, and think in advance. Because I will tell you, I'm a little bit different position, but like when I was I was here at Michigan as a research staff and as a lecturer, and I was asked about this clinical position, and what they initially offered me, I was just not interested in. It was just 100% teaching. So I was able to negotiate with them a little bit on what I thought would be a good mix. So I don't think it hurts to ask if you're going to interview for these, and say, hey, I'd like to be able to do a little bit more of this than you currently have written in, just understanding that for the creation of the position, there's probably some expectation of work that must be covered by it. But after that, there's probably a little bit of wiggle room for how exactly, you can fill in the rest of it. And in terms of the assistant level position, I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, you would have to have extensive teaching experience and research experience to get hired in at like an associate level. And I mean, I guess it's possible that you're not already and maybe you're not in academia or something, but I mean, right now that's what we're hiring at, is the clinical assistant level.
Other panel members?
Yeah, I would echo most of what Matt said. I mean, our posting right now is also for an open rank clinical track faculty member, although I will say our department has not hired a large number of these types of positions in the past, so I don't think anyone has come in at a level that's higher than assistant, but I don't see why that wouldn't be an option. I think some faculty members might be interested in transitioning from more of a research type role, and they may already be sort of at the associate or full level and maybe more interested in getting involved in teaching or education focused roles. So I don't know if that's probably not super common, but I think it's an option, right? And I think those people would maybe want to come in at a higher level than assistant. As far as the expectations, I think our posting is fairly upfront about the expectations, but I think there's no intent to sort of hide the expectations. I think sometimes but it's important to ask, right, during the interview process. Maybe make sure that all of your questions are answered about what your responsibilities are. I think sometimes it doesn't, in our department, for example, it doesn't always get communicated every time, because we have campus master's program and we have an online master's program, and some people are sort of expected to teach the campus, a campus master's course, and also sort of manage, with the help of maybe a TA, an asynchronous online course. So it's important to make sure that you're clear on what the expectations are. So the posting, our positions are we're trying to be clear about the expectations, but sometimes I think it's important to clarify and ask questions. But as far as the again, like Matt said, I think ask about if you want to do something different, right? I think you can certainly pitch that idea. The department has some certain teaching needs that it needs filled, but beyond that, there's usually some sort of, or potentially some flexibility as far as what your position overall looks like.
All right, well, thank you. So, a big part of promotion is this idea of creative scholarly work, which is not always well defined when it comes to a position that is teaching focused. So I'd now like to open this discussion up to our panel and our attendees regarding what they feel is or should be the role of teaching research or teaching related publications in promotion of teaching faculty. Anyone on the panel like to jump in about the role of creative scholarly work?
I don't mind to start.
Thank you.
So it's interesting when, I spoke this summer. For me, this is a really important component of my position. But again, we're learning more about the special title series at my university. And one of the things that I found out this fall was written into our administrative regulations for the entire university is anyone that is in a special title series is not required to do research. So it's actually written in our ARs that if you're in my position, you are not required to do research. But with that being said, if you look at some of the responsibilities that I have and the things that I'm supposed to do, I am supposed to do innovative things in the classroom, and I am supposed to develop new curriculum and things like that. And so I think, if I'm going to do those things effectively, then I need to be engaged with teaching research, whether it be reading research, doing my own research. I think in order to do those things well, I do need to be somewhat active in research, even if it isn't explicitly in our ARs that I have to, have a publication or 3 publications a year or whatever. I think I have to be engaged with that to be in this type of position and to do this type of position well.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other panelists want to comment?
I would just say that when I took this position, the advice given to me was make yourself indisposable, and then they can't get rid of you, right? And so, people in this teaching focused positions don't have a monopoly on vaguely written expectations in academia. My tenure track friends and my research track friends say the exact same thing, right? There is no, you need X number of publications, you need to get this score on your teaching evaluations. And I guess I've just come around to feeling like that's not by accident, because everybody does things that are kind of different, and it's vaguely written so that, if you find a way to make yourself, indispensable, you will be promoted. And so, on this teaching end, it's kind of like you just need to find ways to have impact, beyond just doing the things that sort of pay your bills, I think, in terms of teaching classes. And, that can be research, it can be developing new courses. So Amy mentioned the course that I started that nobody else in my department was going to start, that was for PhD level students to try to prepare them for teaching in a faculty role. Being involved with a summer undergraduate research program or something. Just ways of showing your impact, I think, are what you need to do. And just understand that the guidelines being arbitrary, you can use that to your advantage to some degree.
So I will say that in my position, we have a little bit more of a traditional kind of role or view of what creative scholarly work is. Because the vast majority of biostatisticians in my department are more traditional methodologists. And so I kind of stick out quite a bit. So we've been kind of exploring and kind of learning as we go, since I'm kind of the trailblazer with this and my department chair. But a lot of what he has expressed to me that he's interested in are, publications of teaching effectiveness or curriculum design or things like that. One challenge that we often face with coming up or producing those is that many of us are isolated in where we work. There might be, how many of the panelists did you hear say, well, I'm currently the only one in my specific area? That can make it quite challenging to do that kind of work. And so I will just shameless plug, but joining a section of the American Statistical Association, like teaching statistics in the health sciences, has really been incredible for me personally, because I have met so many amazing people that I could then collaborate with them to develop and work and publish creative scholarly work. So that has definitely been one great benefit of being a member of this section, is the opportunity to meet and work and collaborate with other biostatisticians who are in teaching focused roles. All right.
Amy.
Are there any, oops, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to comment as well, Amy. I think that's a really great point. And I think the creative scholarly work, it is really hard to do it in an isolated fashion. And at our institution, once the faculty career track was created and it was a recognized thing, the small group of us who all are passionate and have interest in this area have coalesced into a writing group. And at different levels, right? We have people from assistant, associate, and full professor, and the exchange of ideas around what constitutes a scholarly work for education has been really it's just been really encouraging and instructive for me, and having collaborators work together just makes it so much more actionable than trying to do this alone. So that's a really important point. The other comment that has come up in talking about promotion for education focus in terms of teaching research is there's the traditional course, but the other thing that I guess I undervalued about the kind of work we do as collaborative biostatisticians is serving as, there's working with biostatistics students, but there's also for many, I think, myself included, serving as a statistical mentor to a junior clinical faculty through like a case scholar or different things. And that came up in this new documentation that is teaching research, right, in a very personalized and important way. And I guess, earlier in my career, I didn't think of it like that, right? And so but I think that's a really important aspect of teaching research. And so in addition to the classroom, I think how we work with clinical collaborators and educate them about statistical methodology in their work, I think really is something to think carefully about and leverage in those, like Matt was saying, those kind of abstract and guidelines, leveraging things like that as having real impact on teaching research within your institution.
Thanks, Steve. So let's see. I saw it popped up on my screen that a participant raised their hand. Unfortunately, I don't know how to allow the participants kind of to speak, but if you have any comments or would like to prompt more discussion, please feel free to type into the Q&A, and I will be monitoring that, and we can try to answer or address any questions that you have. Prior to our panel, I had asked all of our panelists, what do they view as the most beneficial aspect of having a teaching focused position in terms of value to their institution? You heard a couple of our panelists mention, you got to market yourself. You have to become indispensable. You need to promote yourself. And so here are some of the responses that our panelists provided to this kind of comment. One obvious benefit of having a teaching focused position is it maintains high quality instruction. Two, it can allow your department to receive strong course evaluations. It increases enrollment in these really positive classes, which more students, more tuition, never a bad thing. These sort of roles can then mentor other faculty on how to best practices of teaching. Having teaching-focused positions can simplify teaching assignments and free others in the department to focus on research or grants. Having teaching-focused positions will address the need for high-demand teaching responsibility due to numerous service courses. Having teaching-focused positions allows you to have someone to oversee the program as a whole instead of the one individual class. And just to reiterate, because it is so important, better education for your trainees if you have people who are focused and skilled at teaching. So before I move on, I want to see there is a Q&A. So let's see what it says. Is there any pressure of acquiring grants and constant publications despite the teaching position? Beg your pardon if the question is redundant or repetitive. So I think I'm going to kind of answer that myself in summary, and then if I misspeak, please panelists jump in and correct me. But what I'm hearing from our panelists is really most of the positions do not actually have a hard requirement of grant funding, but rather, if you choose to do that, they will not turn it down. It sounds like, some of our panelists have negotiated so that they can have some research time that is funded, but it does not sound like that is typical of a requirement. In terms of constant publication, I think that is dependent on the institution and how they define kind of their expectations. Some of the panelists described positions where publication would not be a requirement, that there was really much more focus on your teaching observations, teaching evaluations, and service. Yet other positions, like the one I'm in, publication is an expectation. I think it's just depends on the institution you're at, but most importantly, these are the sort of things you want to find out upfront before you take a position. What are your expectations? And make sure that they align with what you are interested in. But it sounds like you could find a position that either does or does not contain each of these components that you mentioned, if you're willing to look around. But please, if I have not summarized that appropriately, let me know, panelists.
Yeah, I think you summarized it very well. If I have to just add something briefly, my position also does not require me to have those publications and grants, but the only thing that they ask me to do is, if I get the opportunity for grants and those publications, I should take them. They rather encourage me, even though it is not expected, because they always tell me that is going to help me to grow in my position. So long as it does not take time away from my teaching expectations, they are okay with it.
Thank you for adding that, James. I appreciate that. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is focusing on some of the obstacles for teaching focused positions. They are still relatively new, and so they have some unique obstacles. So I'm going to ask the panel, what are the obstacles to acceptance of teaching faculty at your institution? Or what were the obstacles and how were they overcome? We'll begin with Dr. Foti.
Yeah, I wasn't really, at the department when these types of positions were sort of created, and I wasn't the first one in our department to be in this track, although I was among sort of the second. I guess what I would say is that when you're approaching these positions, I think it's important to from maybe like an applicant perspective, just to project your value, right? Like what you can contribute to the department. I know even within our own department, like when we post for these jobs, or when I applied for the job, for example, right, it was a very traditional job posting as far as like what the interview was going to look like. It's you're gonna meet with the faculty members and you're gonna have a seminar talk, and it's not clear what that talk is supposed to look like. Most, I guess, standard faculty positions are usually coming to talk about your research, and that's fine. And I certainly did talk about some of my like sort of statistics education based research, and I also tried to show my value as like an instructor in my teaching philosophy. I wanted to project those ideas during my interview. But since I've been here, we've interviewed other applicants to our clinical track positions, and some people will come in and they'll give a full hour-long seminar about their research. And I come from I recognize not everyone's coming from an education background, and so my lens is always like, what are you showing me about your teaching ability, your teaching philosophy, how you approach the classroom, things like that. And I'm looking to work with someone who's interested in these things as well, because obviously that's not that that's a requirement, but that would be nice to have our own sort of biostats education core to have in the building, right? So yeah, I think it's tough to evaluate. If you're applying for a teaching focused position, make sure that people are able to evaluate your teaching ability, right? So I'm always, if you're giving a research talk applying for a teaching focused position, then I'm kind of thinking like, okay, well, do I understand your research? Are you doing a good job of teaching me about your research or not? Which is kind of loosely related, I guess, but so I would say that's kind of what I wanted to share here. I don't think there were many obstacles necessarily to this type of position here, or I wasn't here to experience that. So.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Zawistowski.
So yeah, this slide was made for JSM last summer. It was a to-date ill-fated search to hire a lecturer, and we never got one. I put in the question and answer, I put a link to our search right now, which is for a lecturer or a clinical assistant professor. The major difference there would be that at the clinical assistant professor, there is some expectation of research output. But the problem, as I described it for the hiring end, is that like there's just very few people that we can get into this job. Like, it's a very specific skill set. You have to have a high level of training in biostatistics or statistics. You have to be an excellent communicator. And once you have those skills, you can do other things that pay a hell of a lot more than we're going to pay, to be perfectly honest. So we haven't gotten a lot of applicants. But in terms of the challenges, I guess I've faced, I've had some ability to control what I teach, but when the chair is making the teaching schedule, and at the last minute somebody buys out of a course that they wanted no part of teaching, that's coming down to me usually. So I have picked up at the last minute classes maybe that I was not super excited about. Teaching burnout, I think, is a real thing. I teach the fall semester, I teach the winter semester, and then I do our SIBS summer program as well. So I feel like I'm constantly going, while at the same time, I have a graduate student research assistant at GSRA that I'm working with. I have my own personal research, collaborative research I'm doing. And so, what's different compared to maybe like a tenure track person who might have a semester off from teaching, you constantly got days where you're going to have to carve out time to go, speak at a lecture or something. And it's not just that hour or whatever, right? You got to like relook at your notes beforehand, and then you get back to your office after lecturing and you feel like you need like half an hour at least to recover. So it does eat up a lot of time. And then the other thing that I feel like I get I'm fine with the respect I get within my department, but I do feel like there's been a limit placed on my leadership opportunities. I get, I have the privilege of doing service for my school and my department, not always the fanciest things that are going to help me professionally. And I could think of at least one time where I felt like there was one leadership opportunity that I was skipped over because for a tenured person, simply because they were a tenured person. And the position was really about communication between, it was what I do for Precision Health. And it was really about being able to communicate with people that had different types of data. I felt like I was very qualified for it. And I think that unfortunately that clinical title hurt me in that case.
Thanks, Matt. Now we will hear from James.
I guess I'm one of the lucky ones then. We don't really have many obstacles when it comes to teaching faculty positions. When it comes to the creation, even the hiring and implementation of the teaching focused biostatistician, there isn't, I would say, obstacles. In fact, the College of Public Health at OSU especially, was really excited about having a clinical faculty, teaching faculty within our college. As I speak, there are about 6 of us in the college, even though I'm the only one in the division of biostatistics. And currently there are even talks of hiring an additional faculty in the division of biostatistics to lessen my load in a way. Not only one, but they are hoping to get more so that we, the clinical faculty, can also do some research of interest. They are trying to minimize the load for us as well, which is a good thing for me. So I'm always excited to hear that. In my opinion, the issue surrounding this position in our college is that we don't have that many. Even though it's 6, we wish to get more, and we are still pushing for higher numbers. And I feel like it's because it's relatively new. That is why we don't have many. It's hard for the college to have clear promotion guidelines for these faculty. But I think since the GSM, since the panel discussions, I think we've done a better job to improve those guidelines, those criteria. So yeah, it's better now. We have APT document now, in my opinion, which I believe it still needs places that has to be touched on to make things clearer, much clearer. But overall, it's better than nothing. At least we can look forward to those documents and see how we can move from assistant to associate and then full professor. So overall, I would say there isn't much to say when it comes to obstacles, because like I said, I'm one of the few lucky ones. I'm surrounded by faculty, I'm surrounded by people in the college that this position is dear to them because of the work that we do. They really appreciate every effort that we put in. Yeah.
I like hearing that. Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Steve.
Yeah, at our institution, there are no positions hiring. We don't hire teaching focused positions. It's primarily research methodologists. There are sometimes partner hires with centers or other departments that are focused mostly on collaborative research. And so teaching is valued at the departmental level, but there really aren't specific funding streams available to hire teaching focused faculty. And historically, kind of prior to the changes in the School of Medicine, those of us that were involved in running the educational programs argued unsuccessfully to create like a professor of the practice type of track in our department, because other departments at Duke, including statistical science on the university side, have professor of the practice tracks, but we were never able to make that argument convincingly within our department. And so one of the things actually we're now working on is we have, a CTSA funded bird corps. And what I've noticed particularly in recent years, there are more PhD trained biostatisticians and statisticians who really don't necessarily want faculty positions and but want to work in a medical center environment. And so we're trying to put together funding to support a hire that would be for a non-faculty PhD who is interested in teaching, because we can put together funding for a partial, right, to cover maybe half of an FTE, and then have the rest of it be through kind of collaborative agreements that are made through the Bird Corps with various departments. And so we're trying to be creative, but at the faculty level, there's just it's just never been possible to do this, to make this argument. That's kind of the way it is at Duke, at least in biostat.
Thanks, Steve. So to summarize what I'm hearing regarding obstacles, it sounds like some have mentioned financial concerns. Tenure track faculty kind of pay for themselves. We hear that by getting grants, while teaching faculty are purely a cost. Another obstacle at some institutions is just the level of respect and value for teaching focused positions. They need to be viewed as important contributors to the institution's mission. Another obstacle is the limited talent pool. We have a lot of expectations for these positions, highly trained and good communicators, qualified candidates. Unfortunately, the qualified candidates are also qualified for a lot more attractive positions. And so it's hard to entice them sometimes to find the right person for these positions. Another obstacle is that it's relatively new and needs more clarity in the promotion guidelines, clarity on the expectations and the criteria, so that someone can fully understand what they're getting into and what they need to achieve in order to be successful. All right. So a teaching focused position, I think we all agree, is unique and not always well understood in the context of more traditional biostatistician roles. So I'd like to now allow each member of our panel to impart some words of wisdom. So I asked them, what words of wisdom would you share with current biostatisticians or students considering such a position? And what message would you share with a department head regarding such positions? Participants we have attending this webinar, some of them are students looking or recent grads looking to consider such positions, and some are established department heads or leaders looking to maybe figure out how they could create or support such a position. So we have words of wisdom for both of those audiences, and I'd like to begin with Dr. Foti.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think it's important to leverage your skill set and what you have to offer, right? So I think these types of positions are sometimes, and again, I'm only kind of speaking about my own department, and I don't know if this is generally applicable or not, but I'm a master's level statistician. My PhD is in curriculum and instruction, statistics education, and I think I was able to leverage my overlap of statistics training and educational training to kind of, present my appeal for a teaching focused type position. So I think it, offers an opportunity to be a little bit more flexible if you're interested in statistics, if you're interested in teaching. These types of positions might be great for you. I think, and of course they differ from institution to institution. I think, I think I was fortunate to find this position here. I'm happy here, and I think there's a lot of room for flexibility as I've worked here as well. Opportunities arise, whether department committees or leadership roles or administrative roles. You can participate in program development if you want, or if you just want to teach a bunch of courses, you can just do that, right? Or I think there's a lot of great opportunities here as well, as far as like again, if you're interested, you can kind of volunteer to help out with certain things that are hopefully useful for your career promotion and growth. So for example, recently our college is undergoing Masters of Public Health curriculum revision, and there's this idea that there's a lot of feedback about quantitative skills for MPH graduates, right? And so it's good to that people in the teaching focused positions, we kind of if you have your finger on the pulse of teaching and learning, research and statistics, and you have a little bit more experience thinking about maybe course learning objectives and how to write good learning objectives and how to develop good courses and build curriculums, right? So you can kind of volunteer to help contribute to that. And so your department chair is happy because they don't have to worry about this curriculum revision, and you get to participate in this, contribute to this, and I think that's really useful for I would hope that would be a major factor in your promotion packet, right? Helping with something like that. And yeah, I guess that kind of aligns with what I would share for leadership, right? So these teaching focused positions can really add quality to the department, to their academic programs. I think they're worth investing in. Tenure track faculty and research track faculty, right? They're spending a ton of time doing collaborative research. They're still teaching, they're still mentoring PhD students, right? So I think some of these teaching focused positions provide opportunities for people to spend some more time, sort of doing the legwork to build and improve courses and programs and curricula. So that would be.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Matt.
My recommendations, kind of, I've mentioned this already, is that, as we've said here, there's a variety of different, responsibilities that fall into any one of these positions. So, I just seriously think about what it is that interests you. And as I said, don't be shy about asking for that. The worst they do is say, no, that's not what we're looking for. I still do quite a bit of research. I would say you don't have to give up on it entirely if you are interested in one of these positions. I would, there was a question previously about publications, and I mean, it's still important to know that, like, publications are the currency of academia and impact and productivity. So, if you want to, you're gonna have to fill out a form every year that says, here's what I did, here's how I contributed, right? And for me, that's one of the ways that I'm really able to do it. If you're going to go look for another job at some point, the way you can really show ownership on the work that you've done is through publications. But from the teaching perspective, I would also tell you that, nothing perks up students in class, besides, homework is canceled. Nothing perks up students more than when you're like, hey, let me tell you about this thing that happened in a research project that I'm on. And you can give like a concrete example, or you could be like, it's like this most of the time, but let me tell you about some nuance of how this is. And you can draw in examples. And so, I do that all the time, and it really does benefit my teaching. It also, again, it allows me to be a research mentor for our SIBS program, and as I said, it earns the respect of the people in your department, right? If you're producing and being productive, like, they're going to see that, and that will earn their respect. And as I said, it keeps you an attractive applicant if you decide to change careers or just leave teaching. You're going to get some undesirable courses you've got to teach, but look for opportunities, right? Create a course that you want to teach. Every department's looking for electives, right? So you can always think of electives that you could create. There are some realities you have to accept with academia, right? I mentioned one of them was like sort of that arbitrary, promotion. It is what it is, but also understanding that, this is there is a bit of a hierarchy that exists, and until that gets overruled, you just kind of have to live with it to some degree.
Thanks, Matt. And now we'll hear words of wisdom.
Yes, to add to what Stephen and Matt has said, I will, for biostatisticians and or students considering this position, teaching focused positions, I would strongly encourage them to invest time to first know themselves as a teacher, because self-awareness and knowledge of teaching style and teaching perspectives are crucial for their own development as a university teacher. And I will emphasize again on their teaching skills. They should find ways to improve on their teaching skills, and they can do it in varied ways. But some of the ways that I believe they can do that is to learn about the teaching culture of the department that they would like to join, or the university that they would like to join. They should acquire the knowledge about the most important aspects of university teaching. And this can be in terms of how to plan courses and classes, how to design teaching and learning activities, and so on and so forth. Okay. They should learn also from successful teaching faculty or professors within the university. Because sometimes you may not have a mentor, but you can look up to somebody who is doing it very well and learn from that person as well. And then they should regularly seek feedback, being it negative or positive. They should be open-minded to consider those feedbacks, because that can help them to grow as a better teacher. To the department heads and chairs and leaders, I would say this is the important part of our position. They should always try their best to have clear expectations and promotion guidelines for this position. To add to that, they should also create an environment that these faculties will feel at home when they join their departments or their university. Because I'm saying this because I have friends who have decided to leave these positions because they feel like they are lower class within their departments, all because they are only teaching undergraduate courses. So I want the department heads, the leaders, to know that they should remember these people also obtain PhDs, so they are qualified enough to teach upper level classes, graduate level classes, 6,000 level, 7,000 level. This is what will make them to feel part of the community that they've decided to join. So that is my 2-cent advice to those leaders. They should be open to allow them to teach those upper level classes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And words of wisdom from Amanda.
So I don't have it on the screen, but I'll start with advice for students. If you are interested in a position like this and you don't find one immediately, keep looking, take positions to help you gain experience. I knew when I was in graduate school, I want to enter a position like this. And when I first left graduate school, I didn't find one, but I worked at a regional university, worked on my teaching skills, worked on things, and then I ended up finding the position that I'm in now. And I couldn't have crafted a better position for myself. I didn't realize this until I was listening to others speak. I primarily just teach graduate students. So in the last 2.5 years, I've developed 7 different courses, and they have almost all been at the master's level. So I teach very few undergraduates in my position. I primarily teach graduate students. Not that I don't love teaching undergraduates as well, but depending on what it is that you want to do, keep looking for that position and advocating for what it is that you want to do. Because you can find that position. It does exist. I'm proof of it. Like I said, and I love my position. For what I have here, constant avocation. Just constantly advocate for yourself, what it is you do in your position, and educating others on what your role is and what it isn't. If you're in a position like this, you enjoy teaching and you enjoy biostatistics, and there's a lot of different things that you can do. And you don't want to get pulled in so many directions that you don't know where it is that you're going. In terms of for leadership, one thing that I recommend if you're looking to hire someone into one of these positions is to really think about what the needs of your department are. So not just you need someone to teach, but what do you need them to teach? What do you need help with in your department? So for example, when I was first brought into my position, they had been trying to put through our Masters of Biostatistics or Masters of Science in Biostatistics for years, and it hadn't gotten off the ground. And so one of my first charges in my position was to put that degree program together. But that was a specific need of the department that I was brought in to help with. So there was a vision, you know, for my position and what my position needed to do, and having that clear vision helped me know exactly what was expected of me and what it is that I was coming into the department to achieve.
Thank you. And lastly, words of wisdom from Dr. Grambo.
Yeah, I think, Matt, you said it, that the currency of academia is publications. And I think a mistake I made earlier in my career, because I was told that the educational publications wouldn't count towards my promotion under the old system. I neglected to do that. And I think also it was what you were talking about, Amy. I really didn't have folks and didn't seek out folks to form writing groups. But now that things have changed, and I am working with colleagues in a writing group, it's amazing the ideas that come through our collaborations about, everything we do in education, we publish about, whether it's how to administer graduate programs and, innovative ways to test students, or, application procedures, leadership principles. All of that can be turned into academic publications. And so my mantra now is, write papers about what you're doing in education. And that can extend also to, doing educational interventions in your classes and collecting data and doing all that kind of stuff as well. I think it's all really valuable. And that's something that I came to later in my career than I wish I had taken advantage of that earlier. For leadership, I think what James mentioned about teaching is, I think that's a really huge issue for leadership to recognize, is that really failing to value, encourage, and align people with their passion really can have really profound negative impact on their productivity and their career development. And if you don't encourage that, then they may leave. And good teachers are a valuable resource, and that I think are often not encouraged or appreciated properly. And so, and taking teaching folks and forcing them to do methodology, they can do it, but if they're really passionate and want to focus their time on education, that's just a poor misalignment that it's just not gonna, it doesn't work out well. So, and then the last thing I think, which is a huge issue now, and more so than it was even in the past, students really value the quality of teaching, and they talk. And so if you're not providing good teaching in your graduate programs, people who are considering applying to your program are absolutely going to know about that. And I'm not sure that's always appreciated by leadership as well, that the discussion around programs is extensive. And so that's something to really consider, that you want to put good teachers in the classroom, encourage them, and value them, and that will pay a lot of dividends down the road in many ways.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve. So some words of wisdom that I would like to add is that, teaching is a walk in the park. If that park is Jurassic Park, it's not easy, and it takes a special skill set. I love the point on the previous slide that Steve made, which is you can't take a methods-focused individual and force them to do teaching and expect it to be successful. Just like you can't take a teacher who's passionate about teaching force them to do methodology and expect them to be happy and successful. We really need to, appreciate and celebrate that each of us has different skills, and being a good teacher is a skill set that is unique and it is valuable. I think one of our panelists used the term when they were running their search, it might have been Matt, that it felt like they were trying to find a unicorn. A teaching focused statistician who has experience and good communication skills, I mean, they are a unicorn. So don't, if you're participating here and you are a biostatistician who has this sort of skill set, don't underestimate yourself. You have a lot of value. If you are a department chair or leadership member who's listening to this, understand that these people are difficult to find. And I think you heard some tips and tricks of how to create an environment that will make them feel welcomed, want to be there, and want to stay. So I think that those are kind of my closing words of wisdom. I'd like to now go to the Q&A because we do have a couple of questions that have been placed in the queue in there, and I'll read this now for our panel. Is there any instability in the job position? Namely, for the tenure track positions, faculty would have to leave in general if they do not pass tenure track examination. Would there be such cases for teaching positions as well? Or is the stability more guaranteed than the tenure tracks? Anybody like to jump in on that?
I'll just say for ours, my teaching position is tenure track. So I would have the same stability and stability as anyone else in a teaching track at my university.
Yeah.
Any others?
Oops, sorry. Yeah, ours is, our teaching, our clinical track is not, well, we would never achieve tenure and be granted the benefits that come with such a thing. But if we well, in theory, if we're not granted promotion when we go up for promotion, we are not, sort of asked to leave or anything like that. I think you can sort of continue along as long. I mean, I assume I think this is, represents a very narrow potential person who is like, teaching well, and they're getting teaching evaluations that aren't awful repeatedly or something like that. So they could continue teaching, continue going along, and they could go up for promotion again in the future. So that's how it works here anyways.
I would add that, here our positions are up or out, right? But that's in theory. I've never seen anybody out, but that's, I don't know. I feel like it's just like qualifying exams to some degree. Almost everybody gets through them. It sucks, but you got, you get through them. In my position, right, I'm not a tenure track. I do have, actually just got a 5-year contract the other day. So I do have a multi-year contract, which is nice to have.
I think I shared the same sentiments with Stephen and Matt, but I remember when I was accepting the position and I met with the dean. I remember these words like it was just yesterday. The only thing, in terms of stability, there's stability. The only thing he said was, James, we are not going to kick you out unless you screw up badly. That's the only time we'll kick you out. So there is some sort of stability in my position, and I have my senior colleague who has been here for almost 20 years. She has not been kicked out. And so if you do what you are expected to do, you do your homework well, I'm sure your job will be safe.
Go look at the tech sector right now. Ask some of those people how they feel about job stability, right? I mean, there's some inherent instability in every position, right? But I feel like academia is that's always going to be one of the benefits,
All right, thank you. We have another question. It says, beg your pardon in advance for somewhat private of a question. Now you're all sweating, right? If there is no promotion of tenure track for teaching professor, then is there a raise in salary, or would it be pretty much constant throughout the career of non-tenured track?
Can I take that?
Please.
Yeah. For my position, every year there's this annual evaluation. I mentioned earlier, during the spring semester, you meet with the chair and then they evaluate. So every year when we go through that process, if the eligible faculty members vote in favor that you're doing a good job, I think there's always a percentage increase in your salary. And then when you get your promotion eventually too, you get another raise in your salary. So that is what we do here in our college. I don't know about other places.
So where I am, you know, we still have promotion. So we still go from assistant to associate to full. So with those promotions, obviously there is a sizable increase in your salary. And then each year, as James just mentioned, we have an annual performance evaluation where we would then get, if you are performing to what the expectations are, you can receive pay raises or increases each year. So I think even without tenure, there definitely is the potential for growth in salary and position in that, you know, in that regard. Other comments?
I would just echo what you said, right? I mean, I think most places in academia have a merit-based pay increases, right? So you're graded, you know, every year you tell the department and the school, this is what I accomplished this year. And like where I'm at, you get a score, like from 1 to 9. And depending on where that score is, and it is lined up against other people in your department and in your school, I mean, that determines what your raise is for the year. So again, that's why I would just echo, like, you can't just fall into a position and do nothing but show up and teach a class. Like that's not going to work. And as others have said, it's actually, you know, teaching is a lot of work actually. And when you do it for an entire semester, and then you do it again the next semester, and then you do it the semester after that, you know, it does start to wear. So, you know, getting good teaching evaluations helps with merit, and then all the other things you can do, again, to show your impact and participate in your department, those are all going to help you with building up your merit. But that's a good thing to ask. That's a good thing to ask when you're on an interview, right? How do my promotions get determined? How do my salary increases get determined? How do I get graded against people who are on the tenure track?
Great thoughts. Any others? All right. Any other questions from our attendees? Please type them in the Q&A now. All right. Well, as I'm not seeing any, I know we had them kind of scattered all throughout the webinar. I'd like to take one more moment to thank our panelists for your time today. It was really, I think, helpful to hear from so many different institutes and experiences. And so I really appreciate your time today. I also want to thank our attendees. Please remember or note that the webinar has been recorded and will be posted. And if you would like more information about the ASA section that has sponsored this webinar, please feel free to visit the homepage of the Teaching Statistics and Health Sciences section. And finally, if you are a teacher and you are in need of real-world biomedical data sets for teaching, We encourage you to visit one of our prize kind of endeavors, which is the TSHS resources portal. This is a place that you can obtain documented real-world biomedical data sets for use in your courses. So again, thank you to TSHS for sponsoring this. And one last comment, it says, thank you all so much for the detailed, helpful replies and this whole session. That's a great way to end. So thank you everybody for your attendance and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you.